Hi everyone, welcome to our another IACC session, part of our virtual series. So today we've got Yasir Shirazi on board, and I'm sure you all read the email and you read the little excerpt we had about him. So he's a digital entrepreneur, multi-talented. I'm going to actually pass Zishan the floor to give the introduction.
That was unplanned for, but yeah, thank you. Thank you, Yasir. Yasir is multi-talented. He's a graduate from 2001. He was treasurer for BASC, and he's mentored me from day one at IBA, and till now we're in contact, and he's really helpful. And he transitioned from getting his master's from Boston University, and then from Harvard, and continuing his career with Siemens, and then moving on to becoming an entrepreneur and starting Parhlo, and recently Instakin, which helps different immigrants back home getting nominal stuff done to get their immigration processes streamlined. And thank you once again, Yasir, for accepting our invitation to come on board and give us your time to enrich and enlighten all of us.
Yeah. So we're gonna wait. I think Yasir's on mute. Hang on.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So thank you very much for having me here. This is very interesting. So let's get started.
Yeah. So Yasir, you first question, which is I'm sure most interesting to everyone, is all about the journey, right? Taking the plunge and starting the whole entrepreneurship when you're leaving behind your job. So, like, how did you make that journey from working in such a large corporation, because you were at Siemens, and then deciding to become an entrepreneur? So you're starting from scratch, starting from the beginning, and I'm sure that came with its own set of challenges. How did you make that transition? What encouraged you to just take the plunge?
So I would say that for me, from a background perspective, I've had a corporate job for the longest time frame. But in between, I've always been trying to do something entrepreneurial. So way back when I moved to the US, before then I started a venture in Pakistan, and it did pretty well. And then when I was in the US, I was working for Siemens. I was doing a lot of stuff around corporate strategy. And very early on, I figured out that, okay, digital is going to be a new space, and maybe this is something that I can go deeper into. So what I did, my strategy was I kept my job. I was first working in Boston, then I moved to Germany. I was living in Berlin and Munich for 3 years. So what I did was I said to myself, okay, let's try something different. And while I had my job going on, I opened an office in Pakistan, in Karachi, and I said, okay, let's just experiment a couple of things. I think from a journey perspective, it's very challenging from a prioritization framework, in the sense that you have a full-time job. When I was working in Germany, I was running a global project at a corporate level. So it was literally doing that all day and then working on your own stuff in the evenings. So I think one of the biggest challenges that comes up is around prioritization. Secondly, and more importantly, I would say, is that it's about if you're passionate about entrepreneurship or not. Not everyone wants to do it. Some people are happy with doing something around between 9 to 5. Some are happy with doing something 9 to 5 and something on the side. Some people want to do it full time. So I think it's very important that anything around entrepreneurship, you should do it if you feel that you have the passion to do it, because it's not easy. It's not, I would say, impossible, but it has its own sets of challenges. I was talking to the founder of a startup in Pakistan this morning, and he was telling me that this guy has raised a lot of money. And he was telling me, I've done everything from being the delivery boy to being the IT person in the office, to being the cleaning person in the office, to being the CEO of my company. And I think that is very true. That's how the journey is. And not everyone is comfortable with it. So from my perspective, I said to myself pretty early on that I will at least try to do something around the entrepreneurial side. It was of interest to me from the beginning. So that's how I took the plunge. It's not easy. 2 years back, I said to myself, okay, let's try to do it more. Let's just move out of a job mind frame and do it full time. Those are difficult decisions, but from what I've seen is that once you get into something full time on the entrepreneurial side, you have so many things to take care of that it really gets you busy, and you get back to the same productivity levels.
Right. So yeah, that gives us a good idea of how you went through it. But digital entrepreneurship, that's what you chose, right? So of course, it's the new age, the digital age, things are opening up. How would you define or explain digital entrepreneurship? What are the various factors or aspects that come under this?
See, I think this is it's a simple combination of anyone who has the entrepreneurial spirit and anyone who wants to leverage technology to do something that is already being done offline or wants to do something online in a new, unique way. I think the simplest example that I can share off is, if you think about it, there are a lot of Facebook groups where people sell products to each other. That's, in my opinion, the simplest and smartest way of entrepreneurship, because they're not reinventing anything. They were doing it offline already. They figured out with Facebook groups, suddenly there's a social element and they can do the same thing online and they can get more reach and more coverage. So from my perspective, digital entrepreneurship is all about someone digital understanding technology and more importantly, understanding how to leverage technology. And on the entrepreneurial side, you should have the passion to basically take the plunge. And even if you're not doing it full time, if you do it part time, you should be willing to put in the time and the hours to make it happen. I think this is what we're seeing everywhere at this point. It's all a concept. The framework behind all of this is around digital transformation. If you think about it, everything is going online at this point. So from a digital entrepreneurship perspective, besides the definition, I would say this is a great time to jump in. People are getting more savvy. People are mobile first at this point, so it also helps from that perspective. So from my perspective, it's all about leveraging technology and having an entrepreneurial spirit to try something new.
Sorry. Yeah, and then what sort of aspects or what falls under the digital entrepreneurship umbrella? Because it's so vast, right? Yeah,
so so at this point, I would say it can be anything where technology has a role to play. So think of it in this way. It can be around fintech products. It can be around insurtech. It can be something as anything around last mile services. So for example, food delivery. That is also digital. When you use let's say Instacart in the US, that's all digital. And what they've done is that it's a process of enablement where they took something from offline to online. So there are different elements. I would say fintech is a big one where there's a lot of, I would say, traction. Cybersecurity is a new one. There's a lot going on over there. Generally, anything around e-commerce would fall under the bucket. I think these are the big ones. And then, of course, there are a lot of back-end industries that also fall in the same bucket. But these are definitely the big ones.
Right. So before I continue, everyone, this session is interactive. So at any point, if you do have any questions or anything you'd like to raise, please just unmute yourself.
One thing that I would add,
sure.
to further answer this question is when I started Parhlo, people used to read news with printed paper, and they were gradually transitioning to electronic. And now, if you think about it, in a country like Pakistan, print circulation is down 80% versus what it was in 2000, 2001. Electronic is I would say they've had a few good months recently, but generally it's not growing because the newer lot that's coming in, they're spending all their time at this point on TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook. So I think that is also, and that's an example of how digital is transforming how we consume, let's say, content. First, it was all in a newspaper, so there was a lot of leverage with that. The other thing is that it has decentralized a lot of things. If you think about it, 20 years back, if you wanted to get information, you had to rely on, I think, 2 TV channels in Pakistan or a printed newspaper. Then you had electronic media. Today, you and I, anyone can just start a blog and write about anything that we want to and become visible. If we can provide value-based content, we become visible. So I think that is another element of digital that is very important, that it has really decentralized control and empowered all of us in different ways.
That's actually very true, because even if you look at it right now, there's been a boom in blogging and it's become a whole industry, right? Like on its own. So for Parhlo, which I personally also use and read, what gave you the idea? Like now it's one of the most popular platforms in Pakistan, right? And people abroad read it too. So what was it that sparked the idea of putting that out there?
So the background is that I had an interest in, still have an interest in writing. And if you look at the story, then I once tried to get something published in a newspaper in Pakistan, and I was living abroad, and I realized it's such a complicated process. Unless you know someone over there, it's almost impossible to get published. So I said, how hard can it be to set up a website, and anyone who sends us content, we can actually leverage that content, give them visibility, publish it for them, and then see what happens. So this was one of the core motives behind why we started Parhlo. And the second one was, we said, okay, let's try to do something in Pakistan. Let's see how, this is a pretty new industry. There are not many players over here. Let's see what we can achieve over here. So my business partner and I, we said, okay, let's start. So we just decided to do it. And literally we went from having very little traffic to a lot of traffic in no time. But the core motivation was, we said that everyone should be able to write. Everyone should be able to be visible online. You don't have to go to a newspaper or a traditional organization and ask them to publish your work. If you can provide good quality work, you just send it to us and we'll do it for you. And that is why I asked for some numbers this morning. We already have more than 7,500 contributors.
Wow.
Most of them are very young, between the age groups of, I would say, 18 and 25. They don't get avenues to raise their voice on topics. So we give them that avenue, and it seems to work very well. So I would say that was the core motivation why we got into Parhlo, why we started it. And then, of course, over time, we added more segments into it. It became a business. But we still managed to stick with our core philosophy that we will let people raise their voice. So a lot of people, they send us content around experiences that they've had, because they say that, I mean, I personally have read so many messages where people say that, oh, we tried to get this, we had this really bad experience and no one was willing to provide us coverage about it, but you guys did it. So what we've done is that in some ways we've opened doors for people to get very visible, because we have a lot of following on social media. We have a lot of traffic coming to us from search engines. So from that perspective, I think we've really empowered people, and that was the core motive why we started Parhlo in the first place.
Yeah, and like you're saying, the age bracket is so young, and that's encouraging, right? Because not a lot of people back home are encouraged to write. So, you're going into your universities, colleges to study your business and medicine and so forth. So that really, it gives people that kind of place to let out their thoughts, their feelings. But after Parhlo, now you recently started your new venture, Instakin. So tell us a little more about that. Like, you can tell us a little more about that, and maybe then now that you're in Boston and that's based in Pakistan. So what are the challenges and how do you manage to, run that smoothly even when you're not there, especially right now, since I guess your travel is restricted as well?
Yeah, so in terms of why we started Instakin, so usually I look at things from a value perspective, and I look at personal experiences. So even in terms of Instakin, like Parhlo, it was about why can't I get published if I am writing good quality content? And we started Parhlo. Here it was about, okay, so I live abroad, and when I was moving to Germany, I needed some documentation work done in Pakistan for my residency in Germany, and something as simple as going from point A to point B to get it done took 3 months. And I said to myself, oh, that's pretty complicated. So it never left my head over time. And then recently, I had a similar experience. So I said to myself, okay, is this just me, or is this a problem for other people too? So in terms of why we started it, I started it because I believe that we all live abroad. We're migrants, we're immigrants, but still most of us are first generation immigrants, and we have a very strong bond with our home country. We send in a lot of remittances. If you look at recently, Pakistanis sent back, I think, 21 or $23 billion back to Pakistan last year. That's a pretty big number. So I said to myself, okay, we're sending all this money back, but still every time we need to get something done is so complicated. We either have to call our friends or family members, request them, ask for favors, or we find random service providers online and we ask them to do things for us. And from my personal experience, from what I heard from people, things go wrong more often than they should. So I said to myself, okay, let's just test out the concept. So with Instakin, I created a WhatsApp number. I sent a message in a couple of WhatsApp groups where I knew there were a lot of immigrants from Pakistan. And then next morning, I had like dozens of messages from people. I just asked them, hey, I'm setting up a service in Pakistan, and do you need to get something done back home? And I got use cases anywhere from, hey, I need to find a good lawyer, to, hey, I have a property back home and we want to basically sell it, or we want to give it to someone. How would the process work? To, oh, my parents are old, I need to arrange home care for them. So we got all types of cases. So I said, okay, so this is not just a problem that I have, this is a problem that some other people have too. So I said, all right, so let's see if people are willing to pay for it. So I set up a team in Pakistan, in Karachi, and I asked them to find me service providers around documentation work, mostly lawyers, I would say. And then suddenly people just started placing orders with us. Someone needed documentation work done, someone needed a legal certificate. And I said to myself, okay, so it means that this is a service that people are willing to pay for. So I started talking to my customers. I said, why wouldn't you just get it done from someone else, a family member or something? And then they would tell me stories about how things go wrong when they try to do that. And I could relate to some of those stories. So I said to myself, okay, so let's see, this is my problem. This is a problem with some overseas Pakistanis. Let's talk to other people too. And then I talked to people from many countries: India, Bangladesh, Philippines, Uganda, Kenya, Egypt. And I got very similar responses that people would say, okay, we live abroad, we send money back home, we are at this point are used to inflated bills, we are at this point used to getting ghosted, where we would pay and then nothing would happen. So I said, all right, this is pretty interesting. So last year, there is a very big accelerator in the US by the name of Mass Challenge. So I pitched the idea over there and they loved it. It's like there were 2 immigrants in the panel and they were like, oh, I know what you're talking about. This is such a common immigrant problem. So I worked on a business plan over there, and then I launched this service in Pakistan. Now we have a back office in Karachi. We have developers there, we have vendor managers there, we have customer service people there. And we're developing apps at this point based on the use cases that we've received from people. The use cases go from something as basic as documentation work to quite complicated use cases where people need help with a very trusted partner back home. So in terms of how we got started, this was the journey. Just from a personal perspective, I realized it's a problem for me. I realized it's a problem for a lot of other Pakistanis who live abroad. And then it's a problem that goes beyond people from Pakistan. So I said, okay, this makes sense. Let's do it. So I decided to take the plunge with it. So we're releasing our beta apps next month, where we will give access to trusted service providers back home for immigrants living abroad from Pakistan. At the end of the day, we will take this to other countries as well. Coming to your other question about how we manage it, so we've been so two things. One, since we started Parhlo and I was still living abroad, so I got used to doing things remotely. So you use a lot of productivity tools to make it happen. So we use everything from Asana to Basecamp to Slack to something as simple as WhatsApp for collaboration and for task management and getting things done. That has worked pretty well in this case. So that's how we manage it. It's not easy because there's a 9-hour time difference. So you really have to adjust, and your team also has to adjust. So it gets a little challenging from that perspective. But that said, like I said in the beginning, if you want to do something, if you believe in something, then you make time for it, you prioritize it. So same thing with Instakin. We have the back office in Pakistan, but we're also a registered entity in the US, because at the end of the day, we want to scale it up beyond Pakistan. So I would say it's manageable, but at the end of the day, it has its own sets of challenges, which I've accepted, and I'm willing to work through them.
So, especially some of the stuff you mentioned, it does definitely hit home. Because like for me, when I need documents done and stuff, it's just my parents in Pakistan, right? So I can't expect my dad to go out and get all this done. So what are the various services that you currently have? Like what are you currently offering just to create some awareness and let everybody know through Instakin at this point?
Yeah, so right now our main focus, we wanted to first test out the hypothesis. So our main focus for 7 months has been around documentation work and legal work. Mm-hmm. So anything that you need, whether it's something as small as attestations to something as major as someone just recently contacted us, they need to get legal paperwork done for a very big property that they have back home. So right now we only focus on this one service, but that said, we are already talking to partners to integrate more services. At the end of the day, we are not doing all these things ourselves. Our job is to find the right service providers, bring them on our platform as our vendors, and then connect them with our customers who live abroad. Because there is a challenge of, like you mentioned, no one being available to do it. Mm-hmm. And the second challenge is a lot of people being available, but the quality is not good.
Right.
So the quality of service is not good, service level. So from that perspective, what we've done is that we have a strategy of quality versus quantity. So we do a lot of vetting around the service providers that we engage, and that seems to work pretty well. But we will incorporate, we have about 7 services that are coming up very soon. We're in the process of finalizing them, because at the end of the day, we want the app to be used for more than one use case.
Right. So I just have a question. So we have a question from Ashraf, who's also a fellow director of the IACC. So Ashraf, if you can go ahead and ask.
Assalamu alaikum, Yasir. I have 2 questions. One is, I follow Parhlo quite regularly. So I was just wondering, like, do you verify all the stories jo log likhte hain? And secondly, I see quite a lot of controversial stuff being posted on Parhlo, which I kind of enjoy, but there might be people who might not like it. So does it create any security issues for your authors or yourself?
So I'll answer the second part first, controversial stuff. I'm very clear about the fact that you can't please everyone all the time. Simply in Pakistan, अगर आप देखें तो different तरह की audiences हैं. तो obviously backlash आता है around controversial stuff. लेकिन हम वो इसलिए publish करते हैं कि वो content a lot of people are not willing to publish that content for different reasons. जैसे मैं आपको example दूँ, there was a very big brand, they did something, no one was willing to publish the story because they were a very big sponsor in Pakistan. बहुत बड़े बड़े media outlets ने भी नहीं किया, हमने कर दिया. So I got, Parhlo received all types of emails from people, messages, good and bad. Good people saying, oh, you guys are one of the very few who are actually covering the story. To those who said that, no, you should not cover this story. And this is, you're just making this up. So ye pehli baat aa gayi around controversial stuff. We have a policy. There are certain topics that we don't cover as a policy. But other than that, we cover anything that we believe is important for us to raise, आप कह सकते हैं उसे awareness around. तो ये controversial stuff वाली बात आगे जाते verify stories की है. We try to verify as much as possible. आप कह सकते हैं कि at this point we do some background check in terms of if someone is giving a story, let's say I had a very bad experience while doing online shopping. So we ask them for a lot of supporting material around that. So in most cases, I would say we definitely try to get as much information as possible before we publish a story. But then that said, the team is very young. I always say this, that this is a learning process for everyone. So I'm sure that once in a while something happens, but most of the times from a process perspective, we do verify stuff.
Because I was wondering, because you guys do report about rape cases and all these like very thorny issues. So there is a possibility that there might be, basically there might be security issues for your authors. And secondly, the stories might not be true at all.
जहाँ तक security की बात है तो personally I've seen some messages with a very threatening tone. I think that's part and parcel of this. आप इसको कह सकते हैं segment का जो publishing की है, people will there will be backlash around certain things. और वो backlash इस तरह होगा कि अगर आप harassment के cases पे you're writing about them, you will not make everyone happy about it. So people will say that don't do this. तो उसमें security issues I would say आते हैं, लेकिन manageable हैं. And many times people are just threatening for the sake of it. There were some times when अगर आपको याद हो मशल खान एक case था outside of I think मर्दान से था वो case. तो उस पे हमने बहुत कंटेंट जनरेट किया था, उस पे बहुत ज़्यादा बैकलैश आया था. इतना आया था कि in many cases we actually removed the names of the authors, the writers, we removed their names from the content. So that was one incident where it got pretty serious. फिर recently भी एक इस तरह का incident हुआ था from Balochistan. But again, these are things which happen in this segment. You can't just not write what you believe in because you're scared that people would would like threaten you. You just have to do it. जहाँ तक दूसरी बात है, देखिए पाकिस्तान जैसी मार्केट में बहुत सारे टॉपिक्स जो हैं वो तो कोई कवर ही नहीं करता. लोग कहते हैं कि ये टैबू है या ये है या वो है. हम ट्राई करते हैं कि जहाँ तक हो सके उसको वेरीफाई करें और उसको कवर करें, क्योंकि देखें आज की जो यूथ है ना पाकिस्तान की, if they want generic news they can watch TV. There is a reason आज जो 18-24 साल के दरमियान ऑडियंस है पाकिस्तान की वो टीवी देखती ही नहीं. मैं खुद टीवी नहीं देखता. I don't know how many of you actually watch TV, but I don't watch regular TV anymore. क्योंकि the news over there is pretty structured in terms of what they want us to see. हम लोग ट्राई करते हैं कि हम ग्राउंड लेवल पे थोड़ा करीब जाएं, जो बात लोग करना चाहते हैं उस पर फोकस करें. तो उसमें देखिए हमारी ट्राई होती है कि हम उन टॉपिक्स को रेज करें जो रेलेवेंट है लोगों के लिए, which people should know about and people can learn from. जैसे कसूर का एक इंसिडेंट हुआ था, आपको याद हो, बहुत सीरियस एक इशू हुआ था. उस पर टीवी पे बहुत ज़्यादा मिस रिपोर्टिंग भी हुई थी, अगर आपको याद हो तो. देयर वर पीपल हु मेड अप स्टोरीज अराउंड इट. तो हम ट्राई करते हैं कि हम वेरीफाई करें, हर चीज़ पब्लिश ना करें, लेकिन इस तरह के टॉपिक्स को हम ज़रूर कवर करते हैं बिकॉज वी बिलीव दैट दिस इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. पीपल शुड नो अबाउट दीज थिंग्स so that they can protect those around them. So from that perspective, we do cover them.
Thank you.
Okay, so I do have a couple of questions, but before I jump into those, a quick overview, like what are the steps for a digital entrepreneurship setup, right? Like if someone does have an idea, how would you advise them to go ahead, or what should they be focusing on, at least in the initial stages?
In my opinion, you should definitely test out the hypothesis. If you believe something is a problem, you should test out in terms of whether it's a problem only for you or for more people as well. And that testing piece is easy. You don't have to spend millions of dollars to do that. You just have to do a lot of legwork to make that happen. तो मेरे ख्याल में जो मैंने खुद किया, मैं उसकी एग्जांपल दे सकता हूँ कि first of all, I think you should test out the hypothesis. Then, if you have enough validation points, then you should take it from an idea to a business. अगर आप देखें तो एक जो जर्नी होती है इसकी वो इस तरह होती है कि पहले आपके पास एक आइडिया होता है, then you develop a product around it. आप कहते हैं अच्छा ये मेरा प्रोडक्ट है, फिर उस प्रोडक्ट से आप एक स्मॉल साइज बिजनेस बनाते हैं, उस स्मॉल साइज बिजनेस से आप एक मीडियम साइज बिजनेस बनाते हैं, और वहाँ से you become a bigger business. So I think in this journey, from my perspective, जो सबसे important step है वो idea validation है, क्योंकि idea तो किसी के पास भी आ सकता है. Validation is very important क्योंकि वहाँ you get to learn, number one, whether this is a big enough problem to solve or not. Number two, you learn whether you have the operational capacity to do it as well or not. I think ये बहुत important factors हैं. If someone wants to start something, मेरे ख्याल में everyone can have their own perspective. मेरे ख्याल में validation is the most important thing. और हमने ये किया दोनों दफ़ा जब हमने project start किए. Instakin की बारी मैंने कम से कम I spoke to, if not more, at least 600 to 800 people. Literally, and I did surveys. Initially, I would rather spend money on that stuff in the beginning than spend hundreds of thousands of dollars building apps and then realizing that, okay, no one wants legal work done back home. So I think it's very important that validation stage pe, people should be willing to spend time and energy and resources to make sure that the hypothesis is valid. In my opinion, that is quite important.
Right. So we have another question, Rizwan, who's also another director on the IACC board. So Rizwan, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, hi Yasir, Rizwan here. I want to understand about monetization of your first project, right? So I'm sure कि बहुत अरसा हुआ होगा, उसके बाद जाके आपकी monetization हुई होगी. तो क्या चीजें हमें देखनी चाहिए, and before the monetization happens, how do you sustain yourself for an idea?
For the first project around Parhlo, you're right. It's देखिए कोई भी internet business जो होता है monetization की stage थोड़ी बाद में आती है. First you have to build scale around it, especially around publishing business. तो हमारे साथ it took us a good 18 months before we even thought of monetizing. We were very focused on, the first thing was हम इस product में इतनी value ले आएं कि लोग इसको follow करें, इसको पढ़ें आके. So it took us about 18 months, और उसके बाद we actually created revenue streams around what we were doing. Actually, because there was no industry around what we were doing. There were maybe 2 or 3 players, that's it. There are about 12 native publishers in Pakistan, all doing very good work, all working independently. To answer the first thing that you mentioned, I would say digital may, for a publishing business, easily 12 to 18 months, you need to grow and scale before you can think of monetization. In terms of monetization, now there are lots of opportunities. अगर आप देखें तो सारी दुनिया में एक इंडस्ट्री है influencer marketing की industry, that has become a huge industry. हमने एक सॉफ्टवेयर भी बनाया था उसके अराउंड, और हम यूनिसेफ के साथ पाकिस्तान में काम भी करते हैं उस पर. तो मैं ये सजेस्ट करूंगा कि पहले प्रोडक्ट पे फोकस करें in this case, और उसके बाद मोनेटाइजेशन की जो स्ट्रीम्स आएंगी, इफ आई टॉक अबाउट पब्लिशिंग, पढ़लो की बात करें तो दोज वुड कम अराउंड बेसिकली इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केटिंग के थ्रू आपको एवेन्यूज मिलते हैं टू मोनेटाइज. अगर आप e-commerce कर रहे हैं, then obviously it would be much faster. आपकी monetization day one से शुरू हो जाएगी, लेकिन वहाँ पहले आपको अपनी वही एक effort करनी होगी towards inventory, setting up your product listing. तो मेरा ख्याल है e-commerce में थोड़ा time लगता है before monetization can start for a publishing business. अब मैं Instakin की बात करूँ तो we are monetizing from day one. It's a different business model. It's a different service. तो हर बिजनेस के अपने एवेन्यूज होते हैं, लेकिन जैसे आपने पहले वेंचर की बात की तो Parhlo में the focus initially was not on monetization. The focus was on building traction and scaling up in terms of getting a lot of traffic.
Okay, so we have another question. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we have another question. Uzma, if you want to go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yasir, for sharing your experiences with us. The question that I wanted to ask was, आपने जब दोनों शुरू किए ये ventures, you were in Germany when you got this idea. And did you have any experience working on stuff like this in Pakistan? क्योंकि challenges तो बहुत होते हैं. And what kind of challenges did you then come up if you were living abroad at that time?
देखिए मेरा कोई prior experience तो नहीं था publishing में. I had experience with digital and e-commerce, but more because I was doing such things in my regular corporate job. तो जो दो challenges थे मेरे लिए थे, एक तो ये था कि मुझे publishing के business का कुछ नहीं पता था. वो challenge तो मैंने बहुत positively लिया. मैंने कहा अगर मुझे कुछ नहीं पता तो maybe I can do something different from what others are doing. तो इसको तो मैंने इस तरह view किया. जो दूसरा challenge था in terms of managing things remotely, that is I think a bigger challenge. क्योंकि उसमें आपको we were running it as a business, so we still have an office in Karachi. We had team sitting over there. तो उनको मैनेज करने के लिए वाकई चैलेंजेस आते हैं. तो हमने उस पर दो काम किए थे. एक तो ये कि हमने एक लीडरशिप टीम बनाई थी बैक होम टू मैनेज डिफरेंट एक्टिविटीज. उनके माइलस्टोन्स होते थे. दूसरा ये कि हमने प्रोडक्टिविटी टूल्स बहुत ज़्यादा यूज़ किए अर्ली ऑन, जैसे प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट टूल्स हो गए. हम एनालिटिक्स पे बहुत रिलाई करते थे. we don't have to call up anyone to ask आज ट्रैफिक में क्या हुआ, कैसे हुआ. We can just see everything from the back end. Analytics use करते. So I think जो सबसे बड़ा challenge, if anyone wants to do it, would be in terms of human resource in Pakistan and managing human resource. There's a lot of good talent in Pakistan at this point, definitely. लेकिन उसको to find that talent is I would say the first challenge that you'd see. दूसरा ये कि उसको used to करना, working in a certain environment, वो दूसरा challenge है. लेकिन they are manageable. ये उस तरह के challenges नहीं है कि ये हो नहीं सकते. It's just you'll have to put in some extra effort in the beginning in terms of processes, और उसके बाद ये चीज़ें manage हो जाती हैं. लेकिन definitely जो पहला challenge था कि Parhlo जब हमने start की तो हमें वाकई कुछ नहीं पता था इंडस्ट्री का. और and we were actually, I think it worked out well. अगर हमें पता होता तो शायद हम वही करते जो बाकी सारे कर रहे थे. So we would not have been able to differentiate in any way. So from that perspective, the first challenge was we took it as an opportunity. Okay, we don't know anything. We will start off with a whiteboard and we will draw our own structures. जो दूसरा challenge है वो I think काफी common भी है पाकिस्तान में generally. और उसको ओवरकम करने के लिए मैं यही सजेस्ट करता हूँ कि ट्राई टू डॉक्यूमेंट एज मेनी थिंग्स एज पॉसिबल, और जितने ज़्यादा प्रोडक्टिविटी टूल्स यूज़ कर सकते हैं वो करें, क्योंकि उसके अलावा कोई और तरीका नहीं है फॉर यू टू मैनेज टीम्स रिमोटली. दिस इज द ओनली वे यू कैन गेट इट डन. और अच्छी बात यह है कि ये लोगों ने किया भी हुआ है और ये हो भी सकता है. इसमें इट्स नॉट एन इम्पॉसिबल थिंग टू डू.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. Uzma, are you going ahead?
I was just saying thank you. Thank you, Yasir.
You're welcome.
So so we've discussed a little bit about it, the challenges, but once you've set it up, the idea is on, how do you take it from an idea stage to making it an actual functional business?
That's a good question actually. Because when you start off at the idea stage, it's more about building something very quickly. At least in our case, that's my approach. That you don't have to come up with the ideal product. You develop a product over time. जब business stage आती है, then the challenges are very different. तो पहले challenges होते हैं validation कैसे करनी है, आपका hypothesis ठीक है कि नहीं, आपने पहला product की MVP minimum viable product कैसे बनाना है. जो बात के challenges हैं वो होते हैं पाकिस्तान में. अगर मैं पाकिस्तान की बात करूं या इधर की भी, आपका NTN नंबर कहाँ से आएगा, आपने सेल्स टैक्स रिटर्न जमा कराने हैं हर महीने, आपने सेल रेवेन्यू बोर्ड के साथ काम करना है, आपने FDR के साथ काम करना है. Someone will suddenly show up at your office कहीं और से, किसी और गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट से. तो निशान is smiling, so he knows what I'm talking about. तो I think the important thing is, अब हम hypothetically बात करते हैं सिर्फ पाकिस्तान की. If you're setting up a business over there, so step one, I would say at an idea stage, don't invest too much into setting up a lot of offices and hiring 50 people. पहले उसको validate कर लें with a minimum viable product. For अगर मैं Instakin की example दूं, तो मेरे लिए minimum viable product था WhatsApp. I said to myself, why should I even build a website? क्योंकि एक website build करने पे मैंने कहा जो मेरे time और energy लगेगी, I can validate something just through WhatsApp. There are millions of people using it. So let's use it and see if this is something that resonates with people or not. मैंने validate करने के लिए surveys कर लिए. Again, it was a quick approach. उससे ये होता है कि आप you don't get too invested into an idea at the idea stage. And if you realize that the idea is not scalable, it's easier for you to walk away from it. बहुत दफा ये होता है कि लोग बहुत ज़्यादा एक आइडिया से आप कह लें कि फैसिनेट हो जाते हैं कि हाँ, this is a big enough problem, and once we build a full product, people will just come to the product. The market is already there. वो भी एक अप्रोच होती है. वो अप्रोच आई थिंक वर्क्स बेटर अगर आप आईफोन बना रहे हैं, क्योंकि वहाँ पे वाकई आप एक ऐसा प्रोडक्ट बना रहे हैं जहाँ with hundreds of millions of dollars you can create your own market. For someone starting their first business, I would suggest take an idea, be smart about it, don't invest too much in tech initially, build a minimum viable product. और आप उसको फिर टेस्ट करें in terms of whether people agree with you or not that this is a big enough problem or not. तो मैं ये कहूँगा कि जब if someone is starting from an idea stage, again, आप invest in the validation phase, try to understand if this is a big enough problem, and then you move on to developing into a product, a full product, and then a small business, and then a medium-sized business. क्योंकि वहाँ पे challenges बहुत different हो जाएंगे फिर. जैसे मैंने कहा initially, like if I tell you what happened with Parhlo, we started off with maybe I think there were like 4 people working with us in Parhlo in Pakistan. And the challenges were more around, okay, we need a website, we need content, we need to let people know that they can send us content. वहाँ से evolve करके challenges यहाँ पे आ गए कि okay, we need a studio, we need to do our own productions, we have to deal with SRB, we have to deal with FPR, we need legal counsel. तो ये चीज़ें इवॉल्व होती हैं. तो बजाय इसके कि आप ये सब चीज़ें डे 1 से करें, आई वुड रिकमेंड फ्रॉम अ वेरी स्टार्टअप माइंडसेट, फर्स्ट focus on only the idea and how you can validate it without getting too much invested into it.
We just have a little bit of time left, so I'm going to just open the floor. So there are 2 people who I have lined up with questions. So Shiraz Khan, if you want to go ahead, please.
Hi, Yasir. This is Shiraz. How are you? And thank you for
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So a quick question. I've gone through like the entire session. You talk about on a very high level how you gone through the entire process. mentioned about the some forum you showcase your idea, right? This is one area. For example, if you've gone through the surveys and everything, what is the best way to showcase your ideas? I don't know about Canada. There are some startup meetups here, so people usually go there. So, well, actually go and get an investor. That's first question. Second question is how you actually start. You start investing your own money, how you manage those things, and eventually you get to an investor and showcase something. And the second question is, on YouTube, you see a lot of ads these days where you go and do a Amazon thing, identify the product, and everything is hunky-dory. You just select things and you don't need to go into the details of development, websites, and stuff like that, because this is the most critical part of any venture where you have to have developers. Like if you're not graduated from IT school, then it's a big gray area for you how to get those people around and build a team, build an application, and then, so these are the things which, if you can share how you manage those things and how big your development team right now from day one to now.
जी बिल्कुल. अच्छा, इसमें I'll start with the thing you mentioned about Amazon and YouTube. So I've sold a lot on Amazon in my corporate job. I had a team in the US, in Canada, in Germany, in France, in UK. A lot of things you see on YouTube, don't believe them. Amazon is way more complicated and competitive at this point than it was 7-8 years back. It's not easy. The good thing about Amazon is, like you also mentioned, you don't have to invest in tech. You have to invest in content and in marketing and in your product, 3 things. So from that perspective, I will come to the second point you mentioned about tech capabilities. देखिए, मैंने जैसे अभी कहा कि when I started Instakin, I did not invest in tech at all. I said, where is my audience? My audience most likely is on Facebook, Instagram, and on WhatsApp. So I immediately went there without building a website. Why would I build a website when I know where my audience is, at least at a trial stage? So जहाँ तक tech की बात आती है, if you look at the market, there are a lot of business models out there, small businesses, I would say, जो सिर्फ WhatsApp पे operate करते हैं. There are actually services in Karachi where you can order food from someone just through WhatsApp. Like there are people who just cook at home, and you can they give out their WhatsApp numbers. You can WhatsApp them, and they will deliver food for you. In that case, you don't need an app, you don't need a website, nothing, because it's going well. It's not a scalable business. At best, you can maybe cater to 10 customers a day, but that's it. Maybe that's what you want to do. जहाँ तक टेक की बात आती है, अगर आपने अपने बिजनेस को एक लेवल से आगे स्केल करना है, then you should invest in a website and in an app if needed. You don't need. Everyone does not need an app. Everyone does not even need a website. अगर आप, जैसे मैंने आपको एग्जांपल दी, ये जो सर्विसेज हैं, कराची में भी हैं, पाकिस्तान में बहुत सारी जगहों पे हैं जहाँ लोग दे कुक एंड यू कैन हैव इट डिलीवर्ड फॉर योरसेल्फ. इनको नहीं चाहिए टेक में इन्वेस्टमेंट, लेकिन इनकी स्केलेबिलिटी भी फिर लिमिटेड है. इट डिपेंड्स कि आप करना क्या चाहते हैं. अगर आप सिर्फ एक छोटी सी मार्केट को केटर करना चाहते हैं, then definitely you don't need to even invest in a website. If you have to invest in a website, I would suggest just go to Shopify or any of these platforms and just build a website. It's not complicated, it's not expensive. इन चीज़ों में आप इसलिए इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, इनसे आपको विजिबिलिटी मिलती है इन द लॉन्ग टर्म, जो आपको व्हाट्सएप चैनल से नहीं मिलेगी. तो so the thing you mentioned about tech, हमारे पास across the 3 ventures that we have in Pakistan, we have about 9 developers in our team who work on different. Obviously, IT में भी different तरह से लोग आ जाते हैं, back end पे, front end पे. You cannot generalize. लेकिन हमने ये team gradually build की है. We started with no developer. We brought in 1 guy, then the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. और ओवर टाइम हमने फिर इसको एक्सपैंड किया है. When someone is starting a business, I would say don't even hire people. Just contract out to someone, get your product built, MVP, minimum viable product, और वहाँ से शुरू करें. लेकिन in many cases, अगर अभी if you go to Facebook, even today, you will see a lot of groups where people are doing e-commerce without investing anything in tech. It's very convenient. There's no investment in tech. फ्लिप साइड क्या होती है हमेशा कि आप एक लेवल से आगे स्केल नहीं कर सकते। तो मैं ये सजेस्ट करूंगा कि एट एन आइडिया स्टेज एंड एट अ प्रोडक्ट स्टेज फोकस मोर इन टर्म्स ऑफ वैलिडेशन। ये टेक वगैरह सब बाद में खुद ही हो जाता है। यू विल हैव टू स्पेंड टाइम, एनर्जी, रिसोर्सेज ऑन टू इट, लेकिन शुरू में पहले आप आइडिया वैलिडेट करें। तीसरी आपने बात की इन्वेस्टर्स की। देखिए हमने सब कुछ अभी तक बूटस्ट्रैप किया, वी डिड नॉट रेज एनी फंड्स। मेरे ख्याल में आपको देखिए अगर मैं एक इन्वेस्टर हूँ, आई वुड इन्वेस्ट इन यू बेस्ड ऑन द रिटर्न दैट आई कैन गेट और द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ द आइडिया दैट यू हैव। हर आइडिया जो होता है वो आपके लिए इन्वेस्टर फ्रेंडली नहीं होता। अगर मैं एक फेसबुक पे ग्रुप पे ई कॉमर्स कर रहा हूँ, चीज़ें बेच रहा हूँ, तो आई डाउट एनी इन्वेस्टर वुड कम टू मी। इन द सेम वे देयर आर टाइप्स ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स कि आप करना क्या चाह रहे हैं। आप क्या वेंचर फंडिंग लेना चाह रहे हैं, आप कोई एंजल ढूंढ रहे हैं, आप कोई बिजनेस इन्वेस्टर ढूंढ रहे हैं। देयर आर मेनी डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ इट। कनाडा में द ओनली वन आई नो ऑफ इज RBC, रॉयल बैंक ऑफ कनाडा का एक वेंचर ग्रुप है। They incubate a lot of companies over there. So I think you can look that up. In the US, I think the ecosystem is much bigger versus मुझे इतना I don't know have all the information about Canada. लेकिन आप you can check out RBC Ventures. They're always looking for good ideas that they can incorporate into their ecosystem. But to answer your question, I would say that investors, even before you go to an investor, you have to validate. You need proof points. वो proof points आप लेके जाएंगे तो then they would be willing to talk to you and they would be willing to invest with you. लेकिन I would suggest कि put some skin in the game, put in some money, your own money, and what you will see is that it would also give you more credibility with an investor that okay, this guy has put in his own money, so he believes in it, versus going at a very early stage. That would not give you the same credibility as you would get when you go in after you've invested your own time, energy, and resources into something.
Okay, so we're actually supposed to be ending the session at 1. We have a few more questions, Yasir. Are you pressed on time or do you have an extra 10 minutes?
Gee, I can see one from Afrad Sayed.
Yes. Maybe we can do that and then possibly wrap up.
Gee, bilkul. I think, Asad, in terms of what you're asking, what we do with Parhlo is, I would say, quite South Asia specific. We get a lot of traffic from India as well. But that said, our core focus is on Pakistan. It's not really anywhere else. In terms of Instakin, what we do, it's not Pakistan specific in the sense that there are two reasons for that. One, our vendor base is in Pakistan, but our customer base is in the Middle East, in USA, in Canada, and in the UK predominantly. So from that perspective, it's a very interesting business model where the customer is outside the country. Abhi, my team was telling me that someone contacted them regarding some legal work around immigration, and the guy lives in Singapore. So he lives in Singapore. He wants to hire a company that is registered in Delaware in the US with a back office in Pakistan. So it's not a very traditional model. I would say it's a pure virtual model. Jahan tak Canada ki baat aa gayi, I haven't really thought of it, but we will bring Instakin to Canada at some point. In terms of which sectors can provide, so who wants to start? Again, I'm not very familiar with the Canadian market, लेकिन मैं ये कहूँगा कि tech is growing everywhere at this point. और generally जब लोग tech की बात करते हैं तो लोग समझते हैं tech is IT development, web development. It's actually more than that. Think of use cases where you can leverage technology to build a business. अगर मैं इसको ही continue करूँ, जो यहाँ एक और question है, I have a Facebook group with 9,000 plus members. I think it really depends what the group is for. There are groups on Facebook that do monetize significantly. I think you would need more than 9,000 members for monetization. I think a reasonable number would be about 50,000. That's where people would start coming to you with sponsored content, and brands will start coming to you based on your audience profile. So I think 50,000 would be a more reasonable number where you can monetize.
Okay, so I think we're just going to wrap up now. So a quick thank you so much, Yasir, for taking out the time today. I think the session was actually very useful, and we got some really good questions answered. We got a good idea into the whole setup of a digital entrepreneurship. So thank you again. I'm sure more people will be reaching out to you with more questions. And as far as Instakin goes, I'm actually very interested, because that's very, what do you want to say? Like for someone like us who just have like our parents back home, you know, that would be actually pretty life-changing for us. So
I'll make sure we add some of you to the beta version that we are launching, and you can give us feedback on that.
Yeah, sounds good. So thank you again. Thank you everyone who's joined. We will upload this video, this session on YouTube on the IACC page, and then you will have access to it there. Zishan, any closing comments?
Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Thank you, Yasir, once again, for enlightening us with your experiences and with your knowledge. And if anybody else wants to reach out to Yasir about any questions, I think we can reach him through LinkedIn if that's possible, Yasir, and you're okay with that?
Yeah, definitely. Happy to help.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much, Yasir. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Have a great weekend. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.